Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 42, and the time is now 8:42. Zevachim, page 42. At 8:42 p.m. Let's see here. It's in the middle of something, so let's start at the bottom of 41a. And just the last line, the Gemara raises an objection to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, aka Reish Lakish, from a Braita. In what case is this statement that the offering is rendered pigul even when he intends to eat it beyond its designated time, only in the first placement said? In the case of blood that is placed on the external altar, where one placement renders the offering permitted. And now we turn to 42a on the top with the words Aval damim anitanin al mizbeach hapnimi. Aval damim anitanin al mizbeach hapnimi kegon 43 של יום הכיפורים ב-11 של פר כהן משיח. ב-11 של פר העלם דבר של ציבור, פיגל בין בראשונה ובין בשנייה ובין בשלישית. רבי מאיר אומר, פיגול חייבים עליה כרת, וחכמים אומרים, אין בו כרת עד שיפגל לכל המתיר. But with regard to the blood placed inside, meaning in the Holy of Holies in the curtain, and on the inner altar, for example, the 43 presentations of the blood of the bull and goat of Yom Kippur, and the 11 presentations of the blood of the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest, and the 11 presentations of the blood for the bull for an unwitting communal sin, if in those cases the priest had an intention that can render the offering pigul, whether during the first set of presentations, whether during the second set, or whether during the third set, meaning in any of the requisite sets of presentations, Rabbi Meir says the offering is pigul, and one is liable to receive karet for its consumption. And the rabbis say there is no liability for karet unless he had an intention that can render the offering pigul during the performance of the entire permitting factor. In any event, this Braita teaches if the priest had an intention that can render the offering pigul, whether the first set of presentations, whether during the second set, or whether during the third set, and yet Rabbi Meir disputes the ruling of the rabbis and says that the offering is pigul. If the priest's intent renders the offering pigul, whether it was during the first, second, or third set of presentations, evidently Rabbi Meir's ruling must be based on the consideration that one can render an offering pigul during half a permitting factor. According to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish's claim, that Rabbi Meir's reason is that everyone who performs an action performs it with his initial intent. The offering should be pigul only if the first set of presentations was performed with improper intention, while the rest were performed silently. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ovin, hocha b'may askinan, kegon shebigel b'shchita, echad matir hu ihachi may tayma derabanan. Rav Yitzchak bar Avin says, what are we dealing with here? We are not dealing with a case of a priest who had improper intention in the presentations themselves, where the issue of half a permitting factor is relevant. Rather, we are dealing with a case where he had an improper intention that can render the offering pigul during the act of slaughter. In other words, after presenting the blood of the bull inside the sanctuary, the rest of the blood spilled, and he had to slaughter another bull so that he could continue with the presentations. this time on the curtain. The reason for Rabbi Meir's ruling is that the act of slaughter is one polluting factor, and therefore the priest's improper intent involved an entire service, not half a polluting factor. The Gemara asks, if so, what is the reason for the ruling of the rabbis? Omer Rava said, Man Chachamim, who are these rabbis? Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer, they write it Elazar, but it's actually Eliezer. It's a yud there. Rabbi Eliezer, Ditna, Lakomes, Levan, Ketveres, Uminchas Kohanim, Uminchas Kohen Mashiach, Uminchas Nisochim, Shikriv Meachas Mehen Gezayis, Barutz, Rabbi Eliezer Poter, Ad Shikarev et Kulam. Rava says, who are these rabbis? This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, as we learned in the Mishnah 109b. With regard to the handful of a meal offering and frankincense, and the incense and the meal offering of priests, and the meal offering of the anointed priest, and the meal offering brought with the libations that accompany the animal offering, to the case where one sacrificed even an olive bulb from any one of these, which should be sacrificed on the altar outside the temple, he is liable, as the burning of an olive bulb is considered a proper burning, and Rabbi Eliezer deems him exempt unless he sacrifices the whole of any one of these items outside the temple. This indicates that according to Rabbi Eliezer, even when one performs a proper action, he is not liable unless he completes the service. The same should apply to the slaughter of different bulls for different sets of presentations. One should be liable only if he rendered each of them pigul.
Rabbi Eliezer בדומים דתנן רבי אליעזר ורבי שמעון אומרים ממקום שפסק משום הוא מתחיל. The Gemara raises a difficulty. How can you explain Rabbi Eliezer's opinion with regard to the presentation of blood in this manner? But doesn't Rava say, and Rabbi Eliezer concedes with regard to blood, that even one who sacrifices part of the blood outside the temple is liable, as we learned in the Mishnah in Yoma 60a. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shimon say, if the blood of the bull or goat of Yom Kippur spilled, even if this occurred in the middle of one of the sets of sprinklings, and the high priest slaughtered another animal, nevertheless, from the place that he interrupted that particular rite, when the blood spilled, there he presumes performance of that rite. In Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, each individual sprinkling in each of these rites is an act in and of itself, and therefore the offering can be rendered pigul through any one of them. This is certainly not the opinion of the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Meir in the Braita. Rather, Rava says, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish would explain that the Braita does not mean that the priest had an improper intention either during the first set of sprinklings or the second or the third. Instead, this is referring to a case where the high priest had an improper intention that can render the offering pigul during the first set of sprinklings in the Holy of Holies, and was silent during the second set of sprinklings on the curtain, and again had an improper intention that can render the offering pigul during the third set of sprinklings on the inner altar. There is a certain novelty in this case, according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who maintains that anyone who performs an action performs it with his initial intent. Rava elaborates, lest you say that if it enters your mind that when the priest performs the second set of sprinklings, he does so with his initial intent,
meaning that which he had at the time of the first set of sprinklings. Why do I need him once again to have an improper intention that can render the offering pigul during the third set of sprinklings? Doesn't his explicit intent during the third set of sprinklings indicate that he did not have this intent during this set of sprinklings? Therefore, the Braita teaches us that this is not so, but rather silence during the second set is considered a continuation of his initial intent. Rav Ashi objects to this. It is taught that he was silent. Is it taught that he was silent during the second set of sprinklings? According to Rava's interpretation, this is the key detail of the case, and yet it is not mentioned in the Braita. And Ravashi, how am I asking? We're going to begin to change the thesis. Ma, the same is organized. Oh, is it Adas Lishoin? Oh, is it? Rather, Rav Ashi said, what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with a case where the high priest had an intention that can render the offering equal during the first set of sprinklings in the Holy of Holies, and during the second set on the curtain, and during the third on the corners of the inner altar, but during the fourth set of sprinklings on the top of the inner altar, he was silent. Lest you say that if it enters your mind to say that anyone who performs an action performs it with his initial intent, why do I need him once again to have an improper intention that can render the offering pigul during each and every set of sprinklings? Therefore, the Braita teaches us that even so he is considered to have performed all the sprinklings with his initial intent. This concludes 42a.